Hi, everyone. I'm waiting for people to join. So in the meanwhile, I will start the streaming on YouTube. That will be my first time streaming in here. Okay. No, streaming on YouTube doesn't work. So yeah. Hey, William. Hey. Yeah, the chat is open, so everyone can send any messages or questions in there. And I will also launch the poll with the questions on how you are engaged with XR technologies at the moment, just to understand your relation to XR and see what's the audience today. So I can also be flexible and maybe cover some topics more, some topics less, because we'll be talking about development process and it could go like really tacky. And I can also cover some topics from the perspective of the client journey and what our clients are going through while the development is going on. So that's also one of the angles we can approach this topic. Okay, and I will launch the poll. Please choose the one of the options. If none of them works for you, please share in chat. How are you engaged with XR technologies? Or like, have you already developed something? Or have you been in the development process? Or are you just like thinking of developing something and you are looking for more information and that's why you are here at this webinar? So yeah, this webinar will be in format of lecture. And I will stop after every part of this lecture and check if you have any questions in chat, and then I will answer you so we can have this dialogue, not to make it boring. Okay. Yeah. YouTube streaming doesn't work this time, so hopefully next time it will work. I will manage that. And I think we will wait for a few minutes more. And then I will start just making sure that everyone who wanted to join has already done that. And okay. Guys, please choose some answers in poll that will give me more insights on the audience and how to approach this lecture from which perspective. Thank you. And also, please use the chat. Please, if you have any questions, just let me know. Even if it's during the lecture, I will stop every like 10 minutes to check it out to see if you have any questions so we can have the dialogue in between the different parts of the lecture. Because the lecture itself, it should take like around 30 to 40 minutes. And I think it will be better if we can speak in between. Okay, Andrea, I worked for a long time with architectural visualization. Oh, and you're aware of Unity, like you worked with Unity. Cool, that's great. Yeah, we should have included the answer like I'm studying or something. Sorry. We'll change that next time. But thanks for sharing. It's great to know. And I'm pretty sure that you can use a lot of XR technologies for architectural visualization as well. Like I've seen a lot of different use cases. Okay, we have another student here who's studying graphic design. Cool. Okay, guys, I think that I will share my screen and I will start, and then whoever wants to join, they will join. And okay, let's go. Just a sec. I'm sharing. So I'm going like full screen with my presentation, and then I will stop after every section to go through your questions. So my name is Daria. I'm founder and CEO of VAR Studio, the creative agency that works with XR solutions. And we create that from scratch, sometimes from ideas. Sometimes we work with companies who has already been working with XR and they need some polishments or some additional features or something like that. So today I will cover the topic of like, what is the development process from ideation to creation, how to make this step, where to start, what you should know before you start the development process, what are the tips and tricks, what are the risks, and so on. So the expertise of my company covers the full range of AR, VR technologies and developments, like all possible types of AR, VR, different simulations. We also do the data analytics and strategy for the AR, VR products. So this is in a nutshell. If you want to know more, you can always check out the website or any other pages. But we are here today to go through these topics like XR development, what to start with, the process overview. I will show you the main stages of the XR development. Then we will talk about how to evaluate potential risks and what to expect along the way, the most fun part, I guess. Then what specialists to involve. So you will learn about the team build, what type of specialists do you need to develop the XR solution or application, whatever. And then what tools and technology stack to use. That's also like a question, but mostly it appears on some later stages, because when you just start, you fully rely on the expertise of your team. And then if you learn more, then you can make sure that if they're using the right one or not, and so on. And how long the development would take. And the most interesting question is how to define the budget. That's the most standard question, like how much will it take? What's the cost for this and for that? And I will show you how to define those, like budget and timeline. Okay, so the first part is, if you want to develop the XR solution, like AR app or virtual simulation or something like that, you should do some homework before that. So the first one is, you should understand what problem to solve. Like if it is a virtual simulation, well, we have a problem with the low level of education of engineers at the workplace. Or, for example, you have a high number of accidents at the workplace or something like that, and you want to solve this problem, and you're considering virtual reality or augmented reality as the tool, as the technology that will help you to solve this problem. Then you should come up with the core idea for a solution. Like, for example, I have this problem with the accidents at the workplace. I think that virtual reality simulation of different operations and processes or safety trainings is the solution. Then I analyze who is the target audience. These are the engineers, or these are the training and staff managers, and so on and so forth. Then I go through the general user experience. That means like the stages the users go through while they're using this application. For example, they start with the introduction, then they go to the training mode. In the training mode, they have ABCD scenarios, and so on and so forth. Then which technology to use? You've been considering virtual reality, but you also have mixed reality with HoloLens or other glasses on the market, and you always have different choices. So at this point, you should already understand what type of like general technology to use. Either it's augmented or virtual or mixed reality or any type of other reality. And then you do your homework on the high level research, like what are the use cases on the market, what are the numbers, what type of data can you research, and so on and so forth. So all of this should be done before you go into the development. And we can include many other things in here, but this is the minimum. Having this information, you can already come to the developers and say like, guys, I need to develop this. What will be the budget? Let's estimate. Let's check how much time it could take. So if you already decided on all of this, then you can move to the development process. And usually we start with the business analysis. That means that we should understand the business or the company where we integrate the AR or VR technology. Is it a marketing agency? Is it the manufacturing or industrial company? Is it the startup, like who's selling some robots? Every business has its own like nuances, and you should understand that before you integrate the XR. Because AR and VR technologies and applications, they are the same tools that business has to use to benefit from it, right? And to show the return on investment. Sorry. So in this case, you have to do the business analysis. Then to detect the challenges and come up with the ideas. That's the first stage you should do before the development starts itself. So it's like a preparation stage. After that, we jump to the next stage. That's the research and development. I can't say that you always need this, like to do some research and development. Usually we conduct this stage when the application is not that like easy to do, or we have like a very big range of technologies we can use in here. And in this case, we have to test different technologies and combinations and see which is the better one and which is more relevant to the project and to its goals. So, for example, we have the request to build the location-based augmented reality application with the different features in there. For example, multiplayer, or placing the objects from the admin panel, not like real-time placing objects from the admin panel, and so on. So we did the research on the different technologies like ARKit, ARCore, and others. And between all of those technologies, we had the Niantic. And we did the research on that, and we found out that Niantic SDK will be the best tool for us to go with this particular project. And we created the demo and we created the report. So this is what about the research and development stage. You try different technologies, you build something very fast, like in few days, you see how it works. If it works, like, okay, you do the comparison and then you decide on the technology to use. After that, we can move to the MVP development. That means that you can spend like 1, 2, 3 weeks, develop the minimum viable product, including some core features, but like without the super sophisticated design or something like that, just to showcase the core idea and concept of the project, and to prove that it's feasible, that it can work, that it will achieve the goals that you set for this application. And after that, you collect the feedback from your focus group, from your management team, from your audience. You polish the idea of this concept based on the MVP that you have already tried and tested, and you create the technical specification. Technical specification usually includes different types of documents. Like the core one is the specification itself, like the document with the description of every feature, every functionality, all of the connections, logics, mechanics, technologies that you're going to use in there. That's the first one. That's the technical document. The second document is the storyboard. And you can always include in there the concept art to visualize some of the environments for the virtual reality, for example, or some of the graphics. You can create the mood board and so on. Then it always includes the task list, like a very accurate task list, and the estimation in hours, for example, in like who are the specialists involved for this specific task, and the budget estimation. And the other document is the development roadmap. You have to create a plan for the development with the stages, with the team members and tasks and everything, and create the release calendar to understand in which moment of time you will have which type of version of your product. So you can share this calendar with your colleagues, and they can be aware of that, and they will be expecting some of the versions. For example, you know that you are going to attend the exhibition like a business fair trade, and you want to showcase your product or something, and you know, like that till that time you will have this 2.0 version of your product, and you can take it to the exhibition and use it as a sales and marketing tool. That doesn't mean that the development process is over. It can be just a version of the product in the middle, but already at that level that you can showcase it to the audience. Okay, then we move to the development itself. The development includes the different types of work, and usually we start with the project's architecture. That means that you create the like a basement, you know, when they build the building, they firstly create the basement, like the architecture. And the same is happening with AR, VR applications. The architecture includes and predefines how complex the application will be when it's done, what type of features will it have, how complex the interactions will be, what is the core logic, what are the mechanics and everything. Sometimes if you know that you want to scale the project in future, for example, right now you plan this version, but for the next year you want to add this, and that, you want to have the admin panel, you want to have data analytics. So if you already know that, or if you have that plan, you should definitely share that with your development team and say, like, hey guys, I have this plan. Let's include that in our project architecture. So we won't need to like rebuild it from scratch when I need to scale the project. They will include that, and the architecture will be ready for future scales and so on. So that's the very, very important part in here, because I saw so many projects when founders or like clients, they wanted to go into first version development, like very simple. And then they were asking like, let's add this and that and that. But the architecture of that simple version, it was not ready for it. And we as developers, we didn't know about their plans to scale this project. And I totally understand that sometimes you want to try it first and then decide if you want to build something on top of that. But the development, it requires the understanding of the architecture and how complex the project will be. So that's very important. Then the UX, UI development, that means that you develop the user experience, like the wireframes and every step of the user, every button, every logic, every connection. And then you create the user interface, like the graphic materials itself, how this button will look like, the menu and like errors, windows, pop-ups, everything. So that's the graphical part. And then we go to the features, logics, and mechanics. When we have the user experience, we understand what will be the user story and all of the features, we can create all of that. We already have an architecture, we already have the UI and UX, and we can build the features itself, the functional part. At this stage, it becomes more fun and interesting for you to test it, because you already have something that you can click, that you can play with, you can see how it works, you can already give the feedback to your developers, and that's a very pretty cool stage in the development process. And then we have the content creation. It doesn't go like waterfall. I'm just including some of the stages, like the content development. It can start, the process on the content development can start simultaneously together with the architecture development. Like you don't need to wait for the architecture to be done to start the content development. You can do it in the same time. And usually it makes more sense, because while the architecture is building and the functions and the mechanics are building, you're working on the content as well. And then when it's ready, you can implement it into the application and architecture that's already built. So content, 3D, 360, animations, volumetric. The first tip in here, check out all of the resources you already have. Like you can reuse a part of that. For example, if you already have some 3D assets, or you have some videos, or you have some 360s, or music or voiceovers, anything. Like, provide your developers with everything you have and let them check it out and decide if they can use it in the applications. When it comes to the 3D development, you can also use some of the ready assets from Unity Asset Store or from TurboSquid or from Free3D. There are the websites, the stocks with 3D assets where you can go search for some, like, I don't know, like animals or whatever you need. And then you can find some ready packs. For example, I just had the conversation with the potential client, and the topic for the development is healthcare and hospitals. And we were looking for some assets, and we found pretty cool assets in there, like the whole hospital with all of the environments, even characters like avatars and different props and so on. So that's great. You can cut the cost and you can cut the time for its development, right? So there is no need to invent a bicycle if there is already a bicycle on the stock. So just go check it out and see if you can buy it for $50 and cut the development process twice, for example. That makes a lot of sense. So that is what is connected to the 3D. And you should also understand that some of the 3D assets that you already have, for example, CAD models, they can be super great, like super great, but they will not be compatible with augmented reality or with virtual reality, because CAD models, they usually have different structure and they are also very heavy. Like, they can include millions of polygons, and you cannot include it into augmented reality or virtual application for Oculus, because your device will just burn out, and it's not compatible. It cannot render these complex 3D models. So you should always check that out, provide everything to developers. They can see what is feasible, what they can use, or maybe they can take some of the 3D models and just polish something or make it simpler and then integrate it into the app. And then we move to the test and delivery, the most stressful stage. At this stage, we already have the final version of the application or the version in the middle that we are testing, right? And then we're going to the next one. We do the quality assurance. That means that there is a person who has the report document and has the algorithms how to test the application. All of the AR and VR apps usually are tested manually. So there is a real person who's sitting and trying to kill the application and trying all of the features and logics and everything, and then reporting on all of the issues and bugs and glitches they found in there. Then there is a stage of fixing and polishing. That report goes to the development team and they see all of the issues and they polish all of that and fix. And this circle, it can repeat like as many times as needed, going from the QA to fixing and back and forth until we have this stable version and we are ready to go to the publishing. Not always you need a publishing. Like, for example, you develop the augmented reality application and you want to publish it on App Store and Play Market and make it accessible for everyone. That is okay. You can do that. Sometimes some of our clients, for example, they didn't want to publish application to make it publicly accessible. They wanted to provide a link to the application to a specific person, for example, a reseller. That is also possible. You can make it unlisted and you can make the access with invites, for example, or you can pre-install on some of the tablets, smartphones, or VR glasses, and then it will be just pre-installed. And if you would need to install it on another device, then you just do it manually. And the last but not the least is support, communication, and integrations. Sometimes after the application is published, it's delivered, you want to integrate it with your ERP CRM system, for example, or with your backend, or you can add something. So that's the process. You're still in communication with your development team, and you can polish something. Usually during the first 3 months after the launch of the project, you will see the feedback from your market, from your users, and you can integrate that feedback. And actually that is very, I really suggest it to pay attention to the feedback you receive, because sometimes we have this idea of the perfect application, but we forget about the users. And that's not right. You should always ask users, how do they find this application, about the user experience and everything, and integrate that feedback. I cannot say that all of that feedback is like, it's for good, you know, but sometimes you can find precious things in there, and it's great to integrate that for the future versions. So this is the development process, like very high level overview in here. When you start the development, you start with the business analysis, challenges, and ideation, and then you move step by step. And it is good because this is how you can minimize the risks. And when you go step by step like this, you can also have your time to work on the concept, to work on the vision for this project, and also understand the strategy for its future marketing or communication or integration into your business or your ecosystem, and so on. So at this moment, I will stop sharing my screen. I will check if you have any questions, and I will answer them. Okay. So what do we have? William, you were saying about some favorite question. If you have that. Okay, we have one question. Which criteria do you apply to define if a free 3D asset is VR compatible? Okay, firstly, we have to understand what VR platform are we developing for. If we go with the Oculus, for example, Oculus Quest 2, or Oculus Quest Pro, or Pico, or anything, we understand the technical limitations of this platform, and then starting from that point, we can evaluate the 3D content. Knowing that, we can limit the number of polygons, we can limit the structure of the 3D, and we can understand the requirements for the textures, materials, animations, rigging, and so on. So this is something that really depends on the platform. But we have the standard requirements for the 3D that matches almost all of the platforms for augmented and virtual reality. If you need that, I can share with you after the call. Just let me know. Hopefully I answered your question. Okay, which tool do you like the most for prototype and Shapes XR? Saying the truth, I'm not prototyping myself. So I don't have my favorite tool, but all of our developers are prototyping in Unity. And if we need to do some like functional prototype, then we do that in Unity. And we have a lot of different templates and assets that we've collected during this last 7 years. So we can easily like prototype very fast. And if we need some like design prototype, we usually do that in Figma. Okay, yeah, William, you're saying budget question is always the favorite one. That's true. That's true. Okay, guys, if you have any other questions regarding the development process, please use the Q&A or chat. Okay, what part of the process do you find the most challenging in your experience? Well, it depends on the on the client and on the project. Sometimes it's challenging to prove that they really need this first stage, the business analysis. Sometimes the most challenging and stressful stage is testing and delivery, because sometimes our clients, they have the time sensitive events like presentations or exhibitions or something like that, and they're really stressed out because of all of the deadlines and everything that is happening on their end. And the augmented and virtual reality development, usually it's the first time people do this type of development and they're involved in this, so they don't know what to expect. And at the test and delivery stage, they usually stress out because like they find some bug or some issue, and they think that this is the biggest problem they have at the moment. So yeah, the test and then delivery usually the most challenging from the communication side, from this level of stress and everything. But we try to handle that, and we know how to handle that. But it's always different from project to project. I would say that the development part is the most satisfying and the most calm and enjoyable for developers, I would say so, because the preparation itself and the delivery, they are mostly for the communication with the client, but the development, yeah. Okay, do you use services like Vuforia or something for AR in Unity, or you use to create your own APIs? No, we don't use any own APIs. What we use for AR is AR Foundation. It combines the AR Kit and AR Core as one tool for Unity. So when you develop the Unity AR project, it uses the AR Foundation. It doesn't matter for Unity project, is it Android or iOS, it just use the AR Foundation. Yeah, we also use Vuforia and Wikitude and a lot of different SDKs, but at the moment, I would say that AR Foundation is the core one. Okay. Okay, then I will share my screen again and we will go to the next section. And let's go. The next section is about potential risks and what to expect along the way. And we have Chandler here. So the risks are, and these are not all of them, it's just the high level overview again, because if we dive deeper into every type of risk, we can cover much more in here. So the first group of risks is connected to tech conflicts and updates. When you develop the augmented and virtual reality solutions, you use different types of SDKs, even starting with Unity. Unity can update, and then you switch to the next version of Unity, and then you can see a lot of different bugs and problems with that. Or you can have different conflicts between the libraries you are using. For example, we had the very unique and complex project that was the augmented reality application with karaoke in there and integration with the loyalty program. That was only like the three main components. We also had the integration with the backend, and the karaoke didn't exist for Unity. And like specifically for augmented reality, like as well. So we had to develop that from scratch and then integrate it into the project. And you can only imagine what was happening like all between these technologies and SDKs we used. That was crazy. So you should always test the compatibility between the libraries and technologies and SDKs you're going to use, and ask that question to the developers. But if your project is pretty simple, like you're scanning the surface in augmented reality and then showcase some 3D model, that is usually done only with AR Kit or AR Foundation, as I mentioned, and you don't need any specific technologies or third parties libraries for that, then this risk is minimum. But if your project is complex and you're using like a number of these technologies, then you should make sure that all of the conflicts are handled and covered, and there is no risk that when you go to the publishing, you won't see this type of conflict at that stage. Then integrations, that's the other group of risks. every time you do the integration with the third-party server or cloud or backend or admin panel or something like, I don't know, like CRM or ERP system or anything like that, every time you use an API and integrate it, it's always the ground for risk. So you should always check it out and pay attention to it. Then the other group of risks is content. A lot of different things usually happen to content, like 3D, videos, the resolution, the quality, the size of the objects and content pieces. This is always the thing where you find some challenges. For example, we've just built the VR application on Oculus Quest 2, and it was the simulation of the huge city, like on the new planet. And the whole planet is the huge city for like different, having some games in there and so on. And we faced the problem with the content that when it's on a distance from a user from the camera, on some distance, it works okay, but on the bigger distance, it starts glitching and like producing a lot of bugs. That was the question of size, that was the question of distance, that was a question of textures on these 3D models. And sometimes these errors and these risks, they're so like specific that you cannot predict that before you try it. I understand that we could not find this problem if we didn't build that type of application. But right now we know about that. So when you start the development, it's better for you to ask developers, like, what type of risks can we expect in here, like connected to the content. For example, if you provide them with the 3D, just check it out and go through that checklist together with your developers. What can go wrong with the textures or with animations? A lot of things happens to animations as well. So some of the animations we do specifically in Unity, just to prevent the situation that some of 3D animations won't work after the integration with Unity. So it makes more sense to create the 3D model with all of the components and then to animate it in Unity. Then the hardware, the most interesting part, I would say, because hardware, like we have number of different platforms, glasses. When it comes to mobile, like all of the Androids, like it's crazy number of smartphones, and you cannot test on all of them, right? But you can test on some of them and also see how it works. That is about the mobiles. But then you have tablets, and you should have like different layout of the user interface for tablets. When it comes to the glasses, that's the totally different group. You have to understand the limitations of the hardware you've chosen for this project, because this is very important. That will define the quality of your content, the complexity of your features and logics and interactions. And hardware defines almost all of that. So you should understand that. I had a situation when we developed a very complex application on HoloLens. It was streaming in real time 3 channels of video and 2 channels of audio from each user. And we had 4 users simultaneously. So you can imagine. And one of the HoloLenses actually burned out right on my head. I smelled this like something is burning, like what's happening? And I took it off and I saw that it's burned out. And this is what happened. Like it was too much for this hardware. And it was HoloLens, the second edition, not even the first one. So you should always understand the hardware limitations and the possible glitches, errors, and bugs that can come up out of that. then the potential risk is always people that you work with. It's very obvious, but it's also part of risks in the XR development, because you work with people who can get like sick or forget about something, or like getting married or divorced or anything like that, so you should always put some percentage of risks in there, because all of us are people and working with people, and we have to consider that. And your project idea will evolve together with the development process. I put it here into the potential risks just because none of our clients thought that their idea will change during the development process, but it always have been changed during the development process. It's because when you see the development itself, when you see some of the middle versions, when you can already try it out and play with the content and see how it works, or take on the glasses and see the environment and interact with that, your imagination will start working like super extensively, and you will come up with new ideas and how you can improve this and that and what you can add here. Like, it's always okay, and change requests to the development team is also okay, but I just want to emphasize on this for you to be ready that the development process will influence on your vision for the final delivery, for the final project that you want to build, and just be ready for it. That's okay. That's the usual situation. This is the risks and the section in my lecture. So I will again stop sharing my screen and see what type of questions I have in here, or I can do it even without stopping sharing. Okay, what do we have? Has anyone here taken the 30-week Circus Stream Bootcamp? Okay, that's the question to audience, I guess. When it comes to HoloLens, it's always better to rely on remote rendering. Yeah, that's true. That's true. But again, it depends on the project, but having the remote rendering, it's always better when you work with HoloLens. Okay, what do we have in Q&A? Which development learning path do you recommend for beginners? Well, I would really recommend to take a look at some videos, like tutorials or something on YouTube. There are like number of these videos, so you can see how the development is done in Unity. For example, they share the screen, the Unity editor, and they show how they develop that. Okay, then for AR dev on Unity, have you tried Unity Mars for speeding up development? Yes, we tried it out. For some of the project, it really works. A way to learn about XR development, check out. Okay, yeah, I see. And there is a link. So the question was about the development learning. Anil, please check out the link. It's here. In the Quest Pro. Sorry, I'm just reading the question. Is the Q2 is just so uncomfortable to wear for extended period? Yeah. Maybe you should try the Pro version. Maybe it will be more comfortable for you, but I know it's much more expensive than just the Quest 2. So yeah, you should also try the Pico just to compare, maybe if you have a chance at some exhibition or something. So yeah. Okay, I see that there are no questions about the risks, so let's go next. The next part is specialists to involve, and we have different types of specialists that might be involved in the development process. Let me show you. Yeah, just a sec. Let me show you the groups of this fantastic team members that you want to have to develop the AR/VR application. So the first group is management group. Having the product manager, project manager, and account manager, this is crucial for successful project delivery. You need to have a person who will be managing the development team, who will be in communication with the vendors, stakeholders, and partners, and the product manager who will have this whole vision for the product. Sometimes in our cases, our clients are the product managers. They are combining these roles. Then the design team, the concept artists who create the concept art, mood boards, and visualize all of the ideas we have to come up with the final one. And then the UX UI designer who do the UX wireframes, develop the user experience in the user board, and then create the user interface. And the 3D artist and animator, sometimes it's like the one person, sometimes it's two different roles. It depends on the complexity of the task and the number of the content they need to develop and so on. So this is the minimum team built for designers and managers. And here we have the development team, like production team, Unity or Unreal engines. Unity and Unreal, these are the two main engines where we do the development itself. My team works with Unity, only with Unity. And there is a number of reasons why we work only with this engine. But I know that there are a lot of teams that use Unreal as well. Then the backend developers, you would need them if you need to develop the backend, obviously. Some back office or admin panel, or if you need to have some like connections and integrations with other services. Then DevOps specialists to create this infrastructure for testing the versions, delivery to the different platforms, and so on. Then if you have some like specific requirements, then the specific developers might also be included into your team build, having the native developers, AI, ML, and so on. And the QA engineer. This is a very important role in here, and this specialist included into this team of the production, because they are in the like constant communication all the time. The QA engineer goes and tests and then come back with the report, and this is like a circle, and they go back and forth while they have the first stable version ready for publishing. So these are the specialists you have to involve into the development process. For example, you can have, if you are a client and you are buying the development services, you can have your own project manager, for example, who will be covering the development of the website and mobile application. But then from the development of the XR team, they should also have the project manager, and they will communicate one-to-one. Sometimes our clients, they have their own 3D artists and animators, concept artists, UX, UI designers, and that's okay. You can always collaborate with the teams. And if you have your own designers, that's good. Then you can provide better and faster with the designs, and you will have the better communication with them because you have the story working with them and you know them. So that's absolutely okay. Okay, if we have any questions in here, let me check. What is the minimum level HMD do you create XR? Well, I would say that we were developing XR even for cardboards, like having the mobile app and using those plastic VR glasses. I would say VR just to put your smartphone in there. But then you can go with the simple glasses like Oculus Go, for example. This is like a very simple Android platform with no like very complex interactions in there, and you cannot walk around, but still. So it depends on the project, I would say. Are you ever asked to create for a digital twin? How does that work? Yes, we're working on the digital twin at the moment. It works like on this specific project, I will give you an example. We are developing the digital twin of the vessel. Like there is an existing real ship, the vessel, and we create the exact copy of this vessel in 3D. We visualize it in Microsoft HoloLens as a hologram, and we parse the data in real time to that vessel, to the 3D hologram. And we showcase that data with the different windows, pop-ups, and information buttons. And then you can see this 3D hologram, and you can see all of the data about the technical state of this vessel in one place in 3D. You can interact with that. And then there is only a question, what type of interactions do you need to have in there? So for example, with this project, we will have the mode for students that will use that in the Maritime Academy. They can take on the classes and they can go through some learning stages. And then when they are physically at that vessel, they can also take on the classes, go into the engine room, and the classes, they will recognize some of the components of the engine room, like the purifier or engine, and they will give the student the additional information about it, or the real-time information about the technical state, or the safety measures, or something like that. So that's only the question of what do you need to build on top of that. But yeah, the digital twin we work with right now looks like this. Sometimes there is no need to create the hologram or 3D model of that. Sometimes it's just the big data visualization, and they use different tools for that. Okay, there is a big crossover between software engineering and games programming. Do you get a lot of clients trying to run the development because it sounds familiar, or how do you solve that? Well, yeah, it's kind of familiar. Because like a lot of games have been developed in Unity, and the development teams who were working with Unity, they think that they can handle the XR development. And in some way, it's true, they can do that. But as every development process has the different specifics, the same is here. Like if you were developing the, I don't know, like 3 in a row or some casual games, it doesn't mean that you can create a 3A level game. And it's all about gaming, right? But here we were talking about these two different sectors, the gaming and the XR. So usually how do we handle that? We explain, we show the complexity, or we show the technologies we have to work with to deliver this project, and then just negotiate that, because sometimes we can use the expertise of their developers, and we can combine our expertises. They can build the architecture, for example, and we can build the AR, VR functions in there. Sometimes it makes sense. But yeah, in most cases, it's totally different development processes and pipelines. So we just have to communicate that. I'm out of the scope. Which kind of market do you think that have shown the best accessibility or are most friendly to accept VR? I would say that VR is more adopted on the training and education markets, because it's been there for quite a period of time, and it's proved the effectiveness of this solution. And from what I see right now in the market, training education is the most popular industry for virtual reality applications at the moment. Yeah, sorry, it's the end of the day for me, and I'm a bit slow right now. Okay, if we don't have any other questions, I think I can go next in my presentation to the next section, because we might be out of time. And let's do this. So what tools and tech stack to use? That's a question that usually we are asked in the beginning of the development process. And I would answer that the tools and technologies you use are fully defined by the user's story and plus the hardware. But user story goes first all the time. You develop the user story, and then you decide which hardware and which tools and which technologies will fit this user story. So, for example, the development engines. You defined the user story, and then you can choose the development engines. You will understand, is it better to use Unity or Unreal or some already existing platforms, no-code tools or editors? If you need the very simple AR activation with your product packaging, then you can easily use Spark AR with Instagram and Facebook activations, and just don't have any headache with the Unity developments or so on. If you need a VR high-level graphics visualization, then you go with Unreal Engine. If you need a highly functional, full of different interactions and integrations application, then you go with Unity. That's from my perspective and our experience. So firstly, user story, user experience, and then you define the tools and tech stack. What can be in your pool of technologies and SDKs and everything? The first one is type of XR. You choose, will it be marker-based, marker-less, location-based, object body face recognition, different simulations or interactions. Like, you define the type of technology you decided to go with. Is it augmented reality? Then which type of augmented reality? If it is the virtual reality, then which type of hardware to use and what type of simulations do you want to have in there? Then you go and decide on if you want to have the multiplayers. Then you analyze the number of tools you have in there and choose the one that works the best. And you can negotiate on that with your development team. Shared experiences, gamifications, data tracking. There are some already existing tools that you can easily integrate in your project and deliver this type of functionality. Then SDKs to use. Again, this question is pretty defined by the user experience. AR Kit, AR Core, AR Foundation, Niantic Lightship, Snapdragon Spaces, Easy AR, 8Wall, and so on, so on, so on. There are a lot of different SDKs, but you will understand which one to use only when you define the user experience. Again, platforms to cover: mobile, socials, web, modules to the existing apps, glasses, laptops, anything. You can go with the several platforms with the one project, and you can deliver to the different platforms, or you can choose the one, go with this one first, and then decide on the others. Recently, we had a use case when we developed AR application, VR application, and web application simultaneously. We reused some of the content, mostly all of the 3D content was reused, but for the virtual reality, we had to create the environment. For the web application, we had to minimize the number of complex 3D objects and make it more simple. For augmented reality, we're working a lot with animations and product visualizations. So again, when you choose the user experience, you can define the platform you want to cover, or you can make it together with defining the user experience. Hardware. You can go with smartphones, tablets, headsets, glasses, and glasses. They can be standalone, mobile powered, PC powered. You can also have some accessories like haptics, gloves, costumes, some additional trackers for the legs, for example, or something like that. And all of that is also defined with the user experience. And then the content types: management systems, cloud renderings, and so on. When you've already decided on all of that, you can put it as a cherry on top of everything and decide which type of technologies will polish this experience of the development. So that's the overview here. And the main thing to remember is that user experience defines all of this. And you have a range of technologies to choose from and to work with, and you can combine some of them and you can test them and you can see how they work, but the user experience will always define that. Okay, I'm ready to make a pause and check the questions. What do we have? How do you use AI in your development? Well, firstly, there is a trend for 3D development using AI tools. We tried some of them, but still it looks like child created some 3D assets in 5 minutes. Like it's very rough. It's still so early to talk about that. But AI also have been used in the speech recognition and tracking of the different words you say or specific phrases or something like that. And AI also is a part of the core algorithms of augmented reality. So it's been used from the very beginning, but in a different way. When we recognize the space, when we work with the building the and embedding the virtual objects into the real environment and working with that, it's like you can say that it's mostly machine learning and machine vision, but it also has a part of AI. Right now, AI can be used for 3D or graphics generation. You can also use that for data tracking and analytics. I guess this is the biggest section in the XR market where you can apply AI, is to analyze the data that you can collect from the XR applications, because you can collect the data about the body motion, attention level, cognitive load, the way people react to some changes or some events in the VR app, the way they move around, for how much time have been they looking at this object and that object, how they interact, and so on. Like you can imagine the scope of data, right? And to analyze that in the right way, you can use AI as well. Okay, in Q&A, I cannot see any other questions. If you have any questions, please include that in Q&A session. I will also check the website. Sorry, not the website, the chat. What do we have here? If there are any XR design dev study groups out there, I'd love to join. Yeah, sorry, I don't know about those, but you can always check on LinkedIn, I guess on Discord as well. We should have some of them. And I will ask around, so just text me on LinkedIn. Maybe I can recommend something after this call. Okay, haptics and multisensory experiences in immersive environments. Yeah, that's a very interesting topic. Haptics will cover the body motion, body senses, right? And it will give you the two ways of experiences. Like firstly, when you use haptics, for example, haptic gloves, you can feel the objects in virtual reality. You can touch it, you can feel the temperature, the texture, the material, and so on. And then vice versa, you can receive a haptic response from the virtual environment when, for example, you're fighting with the zombie and it pinch you or hits you, and then you will feel it in your shoulder or something. So that's another type of interaction. And there is a big trend for haptics at the moment. If you've seen the Ready Player One movie, they had this haptic suits that covered all of their body, and they were fully immersed into the virtual reality. So yeah, I think that we will see a lot of startups and products in the upcoming years. Okay, I think we can go to the next session of the presentation, and we're already out of time. I'm sorry, guys. Okay, the last and the most interesting part: how long and what's the budget? The question always comes from the number of hours, complexity of the project, number of specialists that are involved into the development process. And I will show you the difference of different development processes and different projects, and you will see how that can influence on the budget and timeline. So here you can see the very, very average development process. We start with UX and UI design. Simultaneously, we start with the content development. Then somewhere in the middle of the UI design, we start the program development. That means that we already have the UX wireframes, and we can already start building architecture and then including some features. And when the UI is done, then we can start the layout, programming, and adding all of the user interfaces. And then somewhere in the middle of the program development, we already have the content ready, and we can integrate the content, and we still have more than a half of the program development going on. So we have enough time here. Then we integrated the content, the user interface, and closer to the end of the development process, we start the testing. We do the testing, we come back and we fix, and then we do the delivery. So this is the very, very average process. And you can imagine that, for example, if you have a lot of content to develop, this stage will be much more longer. And that would mean that you would need more hours of 3D development, for example, or the animator, or 3D sculpture, or something like that. So it will influence the budget for sure. It will influence the development process and the timeline, yes. This is the example with the 3D content. So you can see the different components. All of these parts, they have their own budget. And it totally depends on the number of hours that specialist is going to spend on its development. So if you have a 1 3D model, that's the one budget. But if you have 5 3D models and including 5 animations for each 3D model, then you can imagine that the timeline will be longer and that the more work will be included into it. Then, for example, we can assume that you have a lot of different interactions in your application, and then the testing process will be longer, and that will also influence the budget. That will influence the timeline as well, and the delivery process. So that's another part of the development that could change the cost of your project. Or the 3D content is the average one, but the testing is still at that level that you need to spend more time in there. So another application and another timeline and another cost. Here we have a number of things that influence the budget and timeline. First, the number of features that totally influence the development process and how complex the project is. Architecture type, is it an MVP or a scalable system? For sure, to develop the MVP will take less time than to develop a scalable system with the prediction for every future feature and creating the system that will be ready for building on top of that. Then the content complexity and volume. Here we have different factors. Do you already have a 3D or not? Can we buy it from stores or not? Should we create it from scratch? Should we animate that? Should we have some visual effects done in Unity or by visual artist? And the volume of the content, for sure, it depends. Then the time-sensitive events. Just today, I had a conversation with the company that has the exhibition on March 23, and they need to develop the application to showcase their product, and it's quite complex. So time-sensitive events are influencing the budget and timeline, because to make it happen in your timeline due to your date, we need to use more developers, for example. and involve them into the project development. But it doesn't work like that. There is this meme that like 9 women can give a birth to a child in 1 month. The same doesn't work with the developers. Like the number of developers not always can make the development process shorter. The most of the times it makes it even longer. So you should kind of be attentive, and the smaller team is more flexible, and less of management you need in there, and less of communication and calls and everything. But sometimes adding the additional developer can speed up some processes. For example, you can divide the responsibilities and so on. Team build, it also influences for sure. As many specialists you have involved, the more will be the budget. So if you have your internal designers, for example, or 3D artists, or I don't know, like concept artists or QA engineer, and you can involve them, then the development team on the XR vendor will be smaller and they can collaborate together. And communication, in our experience, communication, this is the very crucial part that influences the timeline and budget, because sometimes we're waiting for content from a client. We can be waiting for weeks, sometimes even for months, and you can imagine how that influences the timeline. We cannot deliver on time. We cannot stay with the same budget. So that's the thing. If you are responsible for some type of communication or providing the content or some materials, then if you do that on time, your developers will also deliver the application on time. Then the pricing models. When you discuss that with your developers, you should be aware that there are different pricing models in the development world, and it's not only about XR, it's about any type of development. It's fixed price when you have a fixed tech task specification and you won't change anything in there, you're 100% sure about that, then your developers, they can provide you with the fixed price for that, and you go with that. If you would want any changes, then they will change the price. Then there is a time and materials. That means that you as a client, you agree with your development team that the rate for 1 hour of this specialist is this cost and that cost. And then they provide you with the weekly or bi-weekly reports that they spend this number of hours and they bought these materials, and you just cover that. And the dedicated team, that means that you have a full team that works for your project full time, and you cover all of the expenses for that team. That usually works best with the long-term projects like 6 months plus and so on. Usually the price for this type of cooperation is smaller, so you can cut the budget, but that's the guarantee that you're gonna work with this team for a long period of time, 6 months plus. So this is the things that influence budget and timeline. Do we have any questions here? Let me check. Do you use Trello, Mira, or Jira? Yes, we use Jira. Jira is a monster. It has a lot of different functions, but it's great for us. It works cool. We love it. We also use Confluence together with Jira as a knowledge base. Yeah. Okay. Do we have any questions in chat? Okay, Oculus Go is no longer supported. Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, it's not a future-proof. That's true. Haptics and multi-sensor experiences. Yeah, I talked about it. Then if there is any XR design. Can you put the link to the movie? Well, just Google Ready Player One and you will find it. About the team size. This is so true. Yeah, it is. Well, okay, if you don't have any questions, I think we can go to the final part. This is the key takeaways. So just for you to remember, if you are getting ready for XR development, you should define the problem solution pair and understand what type of problem are you solving, what should be the solution, and there should be some goal for that solution that you want to achieve. So then you can estimate the effectiveness of that solution when you launch it. Then plan the development pipeline, divide it into the stages. You're already aware of those stages, you know what's inside. So just make sure that you know that plan, that you're aware of every stage, and that you know which type of material or information you should provide at that very stage. Then user experience is a king. That's true. And you remember that user experience defines the technologies, platforms, hardware, and other stuff you use in the development process. It's always number one, and then you decide on everything else. Then start with the pilot version, MVP, or demo app. I always suggest it to our clients, even if they have a big and beautiful dream of VR simulation or AR platform, that is great. But you should always start with something simple, because you can do the cost dev with that, you can test it, you can collect the feedback from the market, you can try the waters without heavy investments into it, and make sure that your idea is visible, that you have a market proof for that, and you have the audience, you have the user base for that, and you have the request for that solution. Then test the waters, collect the feedback, and validate the ideas. That is the part of the having the first pilot or MVP version. Polish your idea all the time. Don't be shy to make some changes, or if you see that the idea can be done in different way or can be improved, just mention that to your developers. They can come up with some ideas how they can deliver that. Data rocks. That's about data analytics and tracking in AR and VR application. Just don't forget about that. You can collect additional information about the user experiences. This is very important, because based on that information, you can receive some insights on the user behavior, or maybe you can make some decision, like business decisions in future based on that information. And have a strategy for your AR, VR applications. I saw so many cases when our clients, they were thinking that, okay, I developed the AR app or VR simulation. I pushed it to the market and I wait for a magic to happen, but magic never happens by itself. You should have a strategy for that magic. Like for any other tool, a website or social media, you have a strategy for it, right? You have a plan how to deliver that. The same you should have for AR and VR application. Communication strategy, marketing strategy, integration strategy, whatever is feasible, you should have a plan on how to communicate that to the target audience, how to highlight the selling features or something like that. So these are the final takeaways. Hopefully that was useful for you guys. Sorry for being out of the time. Let me check any other questions that you have. In the meantime, this is my LinkedIn link. Just make sure we're connected. I will be happy to keep in touch with you and see if I can help you with some of the XR questions. Okay. I have an experience in AR and XR. I would build up an AR e-commerce for the furniture market. Cool, way to go. Could you contact me? Yeah, sure. Other question, will be possible to use AR for the medicine leaflet and boxes to explain what is the use of the medicine and the side effect? Absolutely. You can visualize that. You can play some animations, how it is applicable and what are the use cases. And you can also add some additional information to it, like different videos, information pop-ups, voiceovers, visual effects, and everything. Absolutely. You can use AR for that. Okay. How much do you iterate with your clients in your dev process? Well, again, it depends on the on the project, but usually we have 2 to 4 sessions together with the client in the beginning of the project, where we define the scope of work, the vision for the project and everything. Like if they haven't done the business analyze, then we do that. And that's in the beginning. And then we also have different collaboration sessions with the clients part with their team during the development, where we report on the work we've done on some of the versions of the application, when we present some of the versions, and specifically in the end we also go through the retrospective session when we analyze the whole development process and what was done in the right way, what we could do in another way and could improve. So that's the usual process, I think. Yeah. Okay, what would you say? It's more waterfall then? Well, again, it depends on the project, because if it is a small project, then it could go like a waterfall. If it is a long development, like learn perspective project, then it might be a combination of different approaches, because you have to have different cycles inside of that. So thank you, guys. Thank you for the for your questions. Thank you for being here. And hopefully this lecture was useful for you. And I'm really excited to hear back from you. How did you find it? And if you do any developments, please share the results with me. I will be excited to check it out and just to see the result of the awareness and culture in XR, and seeing more startups and companies working with XR technology. This is something that inspires me a lot. So thank you so much. Let me know if you have any other questions in LinkedIn. I'm always in touch, and we'll be happy to stay connected with you. We will have other webinars and we will have other events together with the guests, because this webinar was in the format of lecture, but the next one should be a panel discussion with the haptics companies. So that will be interesting. Welcome. Please join. I will share the information and announce on that webinar very soon. Thank you so much. Well, have a good day.